podcast helping you understand the energy and climate challenge in just a few minutes. I'm your host, Paul Schuster. The European Union's Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, CSRD, kicks into effect this year, starting with large publicly traded companies having to report on certain sustainability risk metrics for 2024. That group expands to any large European company required to report next year, and further expands out to include U.S. companies operating in Europe, as well as smaller companies. So what does that mean? Essentially, CSRD is going to require companies to report on the risks that their business faces due to climate change, both how the company could be affected, as well as how much the company is contributing to the problem in the first place. Something called double materiality. Let's dig into this topic and what companies should be doing to prepare for these emerging regulations. 8 minutes. It's how long it takes the sun's rays to hit Earth for about $128 million worth of Super Bowl ads. That's a lot of money to have us watch flying mustaches, slightly irrelevant celebrities, and whatever that weird cowboy hat Tubi commercial was all about. Let's get it on. As mentioned in my intro, the CSRD regulations coming out of Europe are likely to affect not only our international friends, but a lot of businesses here in the US as well. And a big part of complying with these regulations will be for companies to start using double materiality to assess the health of their organization. Now, we're all familiar with the financial frameworks we use to evaluate the financial health of a company, whether it's generally accepted accounting principles, GAAP, or International Financial Reporting Standards, IFRS. These frameworks allow observers an opportunity to assess the health, risks, and opportunities of a company's financial performance. But what about the risks that aren't covered in financial statements? How do we account for the risk to business continuity in the face of emerging catastrophic events such as the LA wildfires or the hurricanes through the US South? For that matter, what's the plan that a company has for resilience against an improbable cold snap such as Winter Storm Uri that shut down Texas back in 2021? How do companies think about diversifying their supply chains or customer channels in the face of climate change? How resilient is their business model, truly? These are the questions that double materiality is aiming to address. First, let's start with a basic definition of double materiality. The framework looks at material issues to the company from two perspectives. Financial materiality evaluates the environmental, social, and governance issues that might pose risks to the company's financial performance. Impact materiality analyzes the impact that the company's operations have on the environment and society. In essence, identifying the risks of climate change on the business and the impact of the business on climate change. When it comes to the risks to the company, most organizations already have an enterprise risk management (ERM) system in place to evaluate financial risks. Materiality and ERM share a lot of overlap, but they are different. ERM, for instance, looks at all risks to the company, including credit risk, cross-border risk, liquidity, all sorts of different things. Materiality really only focuses on risks due to sustainability issues, and it goes a bit deeper into analyzing and assessing those risks rather than ERM's rather simple is it, isn't it approach. Similarly, on the impact side of the double materiality assessment, many companies have been voluntarily reporting their impact on the environment for many years. These disclosures have come through different reporting standards such as CDP, the Global Reporting Initiative, GRI, the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure, TCFD, and others. This impact assessment evaluates everything from a company's greenhouse gas emissions to their waste management, resource usage, pollution, and biodiversity goals. As the CSRD reporting directive rolls out in Europe, it's going to require large companies operating on the continent to comply with these dual requirements, reporting on financial and impact materiality. The CSRD begins to report on this double materiality beginning this year, with large companies that are already subjected to the continent's non-financial reporting directive, NFRD. The pool of companies needing to comply will increase to other large companies next year, as well as all listed companies by 2027. And then for companies headquartered elsewhere in the globe, but doing business in Europe, Those entities will have until 2028 to put the processes, policies, and systems in place to comply with the double materiality requirements of CSRD, which means that CSRD is going to have a global impact on business. The newly inaugurated Trump administration has already tampered down U.S. requirements for reporting, axing the SEC guidelines and withdrawing from the Paris Agreement. But those actions may have little effect on the corporate market. Large global companies will likely have to comply with CSRD reporting, and even where they may not, there are other laws coming into effect that also rely upon the double materiality framework. California's SB 253 law requires companies to report on the impact of their business on the environment, while its sister law, SB 261, requires an assessment of the financial materiality. New York has similar climate laws working their way through the legislation, as does Colorado and New Jersey. So even if a company doesn't do business in Europe, getting to know about double materiality is going to be important, which means getting ahead of these requirements now. For those companies that have never reported on these issues, they should get up to speed on the GHG protocol that governs the reporting structure, as well as the TCFD guidelines that I mentioned earlier. Get the organizational structures in place. Understand who's responsible for what data, where that data is going to come from, and how often, what cleansing and adaptation needs to occur. For instance, measuring power purchase GHG emissions based on grid emissions factors or through market-based methods. And then line up the proper assurance organizations who can verify and audit your non-financial disclosures. These could be your large audit firms like Deloitte or EY, or perhaps a smaller, more specialized firm focused in your industry or geography. Eventually, these sustainability reporting metrics will be consolidated into a company's financial disclosures, and some large companies are already releasing annual reports that show not only their financial health, but their sustainability health as well. Double materiality is a core concept that is moving beyond sustainability and now is a part of life for the entire organization, understanding both the financial risks of climate change as well as a company's impact upon it. I'm Paul Schuster, and this has been your 8 Minutes.